Okay, we are now live with the second session in the Closing the Gap Masterclass series with your friendly hosts, Ugo and Fabrizia. Hi, Fabrizia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I just spent a wonderful weekend on the French Riviera between Nice and Antibes with an almost summer-like weather. I mean, it was 26, 27 degrees out in the sun, really warm,
Summer.
sunny. Yeah, yeah, amazing. It was
Amazing.
people swimming in the sea. You could see. I did not
Amazing.
swim because I had my photography workshop that I was teaching, so I did not have no time for swimming. But maybe next time,
Next
I'll
time you
bring
need to schedule
bring
that
my
in.
swimsuit and
It's like,
so.
yeah, it is
How
an amazing month. It's quite warm here as well. Yesterday we were out in a t-shirt in England. Can you imagine?
that's
Yeah,
not usual.
yeah.
So aside from that, how was your week? With
Busy,
easy.
nice, lots of things to do. My week, Saturday I took a day off, which was good.
Oh,
But sometimes when you travel, you don't really know what day it is. I always have to think, like, what is it today? Monday. Okay, so what did I do yesterday? But yeah, it's good. I
good.
got anybody around?
I see on our little statistics here that we have already about 10 people
Well,
that have
write
joined
down where
us.
you're from. Were you here last week? Were you
Yeah,
not here
so
last week? Just write down who you are. So I'm going to actually um, look at your comments, believe it or not. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But yeah, don't be shy. Come up and say hi. And it's easier for us if we know. I mean, not easier. It's just nice, to
it's nice just
get people
to
to go
warm
like,
up,
hello,
to
to
break the
warm
ice
up. I'll break the ice.
of
Here
the
we go.
conversation. So if you were not here last week for our first session, in the page where you can see this, there is a comments, little forum at the bottom, and you can just say hi, say where you're from. So we have Jessica from Salzburg. Great.
Yeah,
Hi,
hi.
Jessica.
I'm not in Innsbruck, but I'm coming back. Salzburg. We need to get together sometime. I love Salzburg. It's nice and it's not far away. So that
Meanwhile,
would
while the
be
people
nice.
maybe are typing and saying hi, I would just like to thank everybody who did our little creative exercise. We asked to pick a photographer or even an artist that they admired and try for some time to take photos, to create work, trying to imitate the style, because we discussed about the power of imitation, and we said that originality is overrated. So it's great to imitate, to be inspired, to even to steal, as Jim Jarmusch was saying. So and people, it's nice that people even decided to take inspiration not just from photographers, which should be obvious, but also from painters like Turner. So we saw some great examples, and I'm just going to mention Sandy and Ulrich, Karen, Caroline.
Karen, she's here. She's online. Hi, Karen. That was really interesting, that geometric stuff.
All right.
I particularly like the one where you were in the picture because I'm a people person. So that to me was really interesting. But everybody, Carolyn, Sheila, how do you, Sheila? Is that how you pronounce it? I think. And Nili. I love the work that they actually put out there. So thank you.
Yep, and we'd like to see even more. We're going to ask everyone to keep this exercise, keep doing this exercise. We believe it's really important. I mentioned last week that I was going to. Well, I didn't mention it during the session, but I posted it on the Facebook group. So for those that are not on the Facebook group, maybe I'll mention this again. I said I was going to be, as I said before, in France for a weekend and doing some street photography and try to be inspired by somebody. My pick, my choice was Alex Webb, whose style of photography is very different from mine. I'm one who likes to have a clear, distinct main subject in my photos, whereas Alex Webb is one that does very complex compositions with lots of layers, lots of vectors in the photo, but they're placed in a way that they seem all to be perfectly placed there, as if arranged, when in practice they are not. And I try to do this, but it's really difficult. So I'm not ready yet to show my results. I need to practice more.
I really like that kind of photography. So I'm always trying to get people to, you sit there and you wait for that person to be there and that person to be there. And sometimes it works, and 99% of the time it doesn't. So I really appreciate it when I see it done well. I think I don't know the way he works, but I think it takes a lot of patience to.
It takes a lot of
Yeah.
patience, yes, and maybe also quite a bit of luck. Anyway,
Yes.
which is it's just good to have. I mean, and you need to work
But you
for.
know what? This is something I want to say, that the more you do it, the luckier you get. For some reason, I realized that a few years ago, doing documentary photography and not staging anything, I realized, and this is a side comment anyway, that the more you do it, a few years ago, nothing would ever line up. Or you would click and it was just a bit too late. You just missed that action. You just missed it. And the thing is, if you can see it, you have missed it, because the mirror goes up just after that. So I would go like, and now it's like it happens not less and less, but it happens more and more than things actually do line up and things actually get shot at the right time. I think it's a matter, you develop a sense of when to click. The more you do it, and the more it happens. Having said that, I haven't posted anything in a long time, so now I will have to show, I suppose. Anyway, don't mind me. Right, let's get on with it.
Let's get on with today's session. And last time we talked about the problems. We tried to uncover the underlying issues that prevent us from bridging the gap that Ira Glass was talking about. Today we want to be a little more useful, as if it were, to try to give some solutions. And again, of course, we cannot try to be exhaustive in this. So there's a lot of things that can be said. But we like to share some of the things that we found over the years that have helped us get better at what we do. I think we can say so without false modesty that we managed to reach some results. So we'd like to share what we learned and to give some hints, advice, solutions, whatever you want to call them. And
the practical today.
Practical stuff. Yeah.
Today, practical day today.
And I like to try to organize for the sake of convenience and not getting lost, instead of giving a long list of tips and things to do, to try to group them into three main categories. And I think the problems that we have, I think they all come down to the way we relate to something, right? It can be relating to our equipment, to our cameras and lenses and the rest of our equipment, or the act of taking photos. And this is where the most practical suggestions fall down to. I mean, just getting down to shooting and getting better at it. So giving some suggestions about how to handle, how to deal with our cameras that sometimes can be a little bit intimidating. The other broad category is the relationship that we have with ourselves. I like to, in other words, our mindset, how we think about ourselves, how we see ourselves, how we perceive ourselves. And this also comes down to what we talked the other day about having confidence, having self-awareness, being conscious and knowing that we have talent. And the final category is about the relationship that we have with others. with the external world, going out of our own mind and thinking about who do we create what we create for, be it our peers, be it other photographers, whether we want to relate with them, even if we don't create for other photographers, but still we relate to them, we participate in discussions, we even people who are here are relating to other photographers. The other people here are not our audience, they are our peers. And sometimes the relationship, especially in nowadays world, the relationship between photographers in online forums and so on can get a little complicated. Things can get sour, and it's. I think it's important to learn how to approach those kind of relationship in a proper way to avoid getting dragged down in endless discussions and so on.
Yeah, or
And
upset, or I just read something this morning that made me think about this. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. It's
yeah,
really
okay,
important. Really
well,
important.
sure, just do. And the other people might be our audience, the people who we want to appreciate our photos. Whether we want just to show them to just gain approval, and everybody in a way wants to get some approval. There's a lot of people that say I only shoot for myself, which is great. We should shoot for ourselves because we are our first customer, so to speak, our first audience. But everybody wants to be appreciated for what they do.
Yeah.
So let's not be too hypocritical about this. I think that's important. And even if it's not for, so we vie for approval, even if not, that approval is just maybe in the form of likes or kudos online. Sometimes it's even approval in the form of commercial success, of money. We want to have an audience who is ready to pay for our work. And we had a lot of questions submitted from people who would like to maybe start selling their photos or getting commercial success. We'll probably not have time to talk about this week. Maybe we'll do it with the
Next time.
next session.
I
But
think next time we
yeah,
talk about that.
probably we'll definitely talk about that. But let's see how much ground we can cover today, because well, that's a lot. That's a lot to to digest. There's
Yeah.
a lot of things that can be said.
So I think that about in the field type of stuff, you should be the one starting, because yeah, we both have experience, but at the same time, you are the one teaching photography. I don't do that. So be the teacher.
and I often physically go in the field, in the street,
In the
or in
field,
the
yeah.
country, in the wilderness to take photos. So I'll start with that. Sure.
I'll chip in.
So a couple of things very quickly. One thing that I would like to mention, and my first advice is to always carry your camera with you. And I do a lot of travel. Sometimes I do travel, or I used to do travel for work and jobs that had nothing to do with photography. And I always like to, I learned to start carrying my camera with me at all times. You never know what can happen. You're even out of your office, out of a meeting, having the camera with you. Something can happen. You can find an interesting subject everywhere. Just not going to say much about this because it's being repeated over and over. But sometimes people just get lazy and don't do it. So find a way to pack a camera in every bag that you do when you go out.
I have a little camera that I carry in my bag, but sometimes I don't. And but I do. I always have a phone, so I always have a camera with me. But I have been trying to take my camera with me. Traveling a lot is not so easy sometimes, but I do take it with me. So it's true, but also knowing your whatever camera you got, whether it's the phone or a little, small one, or your main camera, and knowing how to use it, I think that's the important thing. I never feel that I cannot take a picture if I want to. It may not be exactly what, God, I need like a 300 telephoto lens to take a hummingbird at 500 yards. I don't do that kind of photos anyway, so I'm not bothered. But it's I always feel like you can take the photos that you want with what you have. I think that's really important. That's the point. Yeah,
I think
I don't know if you agree.
important that, yeah, definitely. I think it's important that you mentioned the phone because nowadays everybody has a cell phone in their pocket, which is a camera. The thing is, we need to consciously think about that phone as a camera when we're out, right? Which means
Yeah.
maybe just instead of having it in your pocket, keep it in your hand with the photo camera application, whatever it is on your type of phone, active.
Open. Yeah.
Instead of having, okay, now I see something interesting, but I need to switch to that mindset of taking photos. Take the phone out of your pocket, turn it on, and turn on the photos, the camera application.
Yeah,
If
I
you're
think
ready to shoot,
yeah.
it's easier. It's
Yeah, I think we need to think of our phones like guns,
mhm.
like we're shooting. Like, so I can flip it out of my pocket, turn it on, and click like really, really fast if I want to. And we can all practice that. It's quite fun, actually.
Okay. I just lost the light I had in front of me.
That's okay. We can still
It
see
became a little
you.
dark.
We all have problems with lights. No, it's okay. You're
No,
still
my
You're
little
still
light
good.
there
And now
was
we're the same. We're the same shade of green, which is
okay.
kind of nice.
Good. Because I have
Instead
these
of
fluorescent lights which are green and kind of
yeah,
greenish, and the walls in this room are yellowish. So yeah,
that's
okay,
okay. We can
okay,
still see you. Yeah. Okay.
great. Maybe I'll try to fix it later. Okay, so that's one thing. And the other thing that I see, I was discussing this again with some people during this workshop I had just until yesterday. You need to become really familiar with the settings on your camera. You don't want to, especially when you're doing a workshop, you don't want to waste shots. You don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to set your camera. And in order to become familiar, you need to use it, and you need to use it before you go on the field. There's no substitute with that. And I have some. We can talk. Maybe I can. I have a couple of series of exercises that people can do even in their house before going out and shoot to just get really familiar, to be able to use the camera even in the dark. Just feeling the controls with the fingers and not having to look at it and trying to figure out how do I change the ISO or the focus mode.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, especially, I mean, with the phone is not that important because most of the time you're just in auto. But I used to miss a lot of shots because I didn't check my settings before something happened. So if you think you're going to take photos, check your settings beforehand so you're reactive. If you're in a situation where action is happening fast, check your shutter speed, right? If you're in a situation where the light is fading, check or subjects are at different distance, check your aperture to make sure you have enough depth of field and those kind of things. Don't just wait at the last minute.
Yeah, I tend to walk around. I have my camera. I tend to walk around with it. And as the day goes, or as my wherever I am goes, and I think what might be my next shot, you think ahead and you go, okay, check the ISO always. If it's, if I'm inside or outside, if I'm going inside a place, I'm going to change it as I walk in. And if I'm outside, I'm going to change it as I walk out. That's the biggest thing, because then ISO is what blows things up or down. And then I know, if I'm out and I'm doing street photography, I just set my f-stops to, I don't know, 8. And I know that's going to be good to go and shoot on aperture. And if I know there's, kids running around on bicycles, then I will set my shutter speed and go on shutter speed. So you kind of think ahead at what you're going to do next. I don't know if you do it this way, but that's the way I do it. And so you kind of set yourself up for, if it happens, if what I think will happen, what I'm hoping will happen actually happens, I'm kind of there, right? And then as it happens, you still have time, maybe to change something, but if you don't, you know you got something, you know. And then there's Lightroom. You can save a multitude of sins with that. So that's for, you know, street photography I'm talking about. If you're doing landscape, you've got all the time in the world to just sit on a tripod, or God's sake.
Well, but you don't know the number of times I've seen people that forgot to check their ISO before shooting landscape, and then they had the ISO at high values, even though they were on a tripod, and I could just use the base ISO and get a cleaner picture.
Yeah, I know. And then the thing is, like, the one that you miss because the ISO is off is the one where the bird is coming just right. And then you don't have that. So
funny that you mentioned. Yeah, funny that you mentioned kids on bikes, because I mean, right yesterday I was in France, in Antibes, and I was walking around the old city, and I saw this long and narrow street, a pedestrian road street, and I saw a kid at the end of the street with a skateboard in his hand. And I said, now what's the kid going to do? He's going to jump on the skateboard and come towards me. So I said, got my camera, set to an aperture that would give me enough depth of field, set to continuous autofocus, and continuous shooting, fast continuous shooting. And I just stood there waiting for him to start on his skateboard. But instead of going on his skateboard, he started running. He was running as fast as only kids can. So I started shooting, and the camera kept the autofocus on him. The focus was perfect, and the exposure was perfect, but he was blurry because he was running so fast that I didn't set my shutter speed fast enough, because I was expecting him to go on the skateboard instead.
Sometimes motion blur is nice too, so maybe you can.
You cannot fix that on Lightroom.
No, you can't fix that.
It's got a kind of a cool image.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes blur is underrated. Right?
Sharpness is overrated.
Sharpness is overrated. I have a wedding photo of a bride and her grandmother, and the grandmother just hugged her, and it was a dark place, and there's movement in this hug, but they actually, it's a motion blur, just slightly, but there's enough of the picture that's still, and then there's a bit of movement in the grandmother, and it was, you know, perfect, because that movement is what actually made the picture, and they blew it up really big on the wall. So you never know. Blur is underrated. Motion blur is underrated.
All right. I'd like now to talk not so much about gear and settings and cameras, but more about the act of shooting, and something like the choice of subject. And I have an article, again, maybe I'll share a link later, which I titled "Embrace the Cliché," because this is a discussion that happens a lot between photographers about, should we take, when we go to a place, especially if it's a popular place and a location, should we take those iconic kind of postcard shots? And my conclusion, after having debated the issue with other people and myself, is yes, why not? I mean, there is a reason why those shots are called iconic. It's because they are beautiful, right? So if you've never been to one of those places, I don't know, Mesa Arch in Canyonlands, or Santorini at sunset, why not take that photo, even though it's been taken like a million times? And you can always put your spin on that. And then after you've taken that, you've got that under your belt, you can always try to think a bit outside the box, and try to find something different, and try to make your gears work and stimulate your creativity. So
yeah, we always say, take the safe shot first. Yeah. You know, the shot that you would want to come home with anyway, or that people expect to see, or whatever, even whether it's for clients or for anything. The shots that are just a bit boring, but they're safe and they're okay, and they're going to be good pictures. They're going to be, you know, nice shot. And then once you've got that, then you go out and you turn it upside down, do whatever, look through keyholes, do all your other perspective things. But then if they don't come out as well as you want, you've got your nice safe shot, and you can, you know, that's worth printing.
But again, in order to go beyond the cliche, I think the first thing we need to do is to learn to observe,
Mm.
because I mean, the iconic shot, you don't need to apply a lot of observation. You see that before going to a place, right? When I travel, I always like to document myself, see what other photographers have photographed in a given place. So I already that shot in my mind. So I can go there. Oh, I see it. Okay, I don't have to make any effort. Put my camera in that spot and get it. But if you want to go beyond that, you need to learn to observe. You know, to turn around and think. And I think it's important that at that moment you observe without the camera to your eye.
Mm.
To go beyond the confines of the viewfinder. Sometimes we have this. We photographers like to photograph at all times. We have the camera to in front of our face. We look only through the viewfinder, which is a very narrow field of view, very limited, kind of like a tunnel, and we don't see what's beyond that. And it's hard to pre-visualize and see different alternatives if we don't put the camera down. I also like to sometimes to go to a place, okay, take the iconic shot, maybe, okay, stay out one day with the camera, shoot as much as I can because I need those, and maybe tomorrow the conditions are not going to be good, but go outside in the same place the day after and just maybe even leave the camera in the hotel. And which contradicts a little
Oh,
bit what I said before about always taking the
I
camera.
can't do that. I can't do that.
I need to force myself to do it, but once you
Yeah.
have those shots, just learn to what you can do without the camera and observe, and then maybe, okay, maybe keep the camera in your bag.
Yeah,
Just
I
don't tell
can't
me.
leave it. I keep it in my bag. One thing is that sometimes you want to take it, take it away from you, like leave it in the bag, and instead of looking, feel the place. Because sometimes some of the things that we want to shoot are not what you see, but what you feel. And so to translate a feeling into a photo takes a bit of time, but you have to feel it first. And if you keep looking just with your eyes, you don't get the feeling or the mood of this place. So sometimes that's needed, some time off the viewfinder, like you say, and just the time to feel it and then realize that what really conveys the best feeling of this place is maybe a tiny detail and not the big picture, or vice versa.
Right.
Anyway,
So I would like to invite everyone to tell us what you think about those
yeah, does
things.
it make sense? Are we making sense?
Is it
That would
something
help.
resonates with you, or you agree or disagree? Just let us know in the forum, in the page. We'd like to. Don't be so silent. Give us some
Yeah.
your inputs. Okay. My last tip about this section here, this category about the act of shooting is go the extra mile. And so I would just illustrate this with a little story. Again, from my recent experience, I was in Scotland recently, and after a couple of days where it was mostly raining on the Isle of Skye, we had like promising weather forecast that the weather was going to be better the next morning. So I was planning to shoot in a location that is called the Store, which is a mountainous area with those some amazing pinnacles of rock. And I said I want to go there for sunrise because that area is facing east. You need to go there for sunrise. So we need to drive for almost 1 hour. And then we knew we had to climb up the mountain on a very steep path for about 45 minutes. Literally go the extra mile, climb up for a mile or more. So get up very early in the dark, drive there. It's not raining, which is good. Get to the parking lot, start climbing up in the dark. We climb up, we go to the spot, and it's freezing. The wind is blowing. We need to brace the rocks just not to be blown away. Try to hold on to the tripod for the camera and wait for the sun to come up. And then there's a band of clouds on the horizon. And we see there's a clearing above the clouds, but the sun is below the clouds. And it took about 2 hours before the sun started shining on the rocks. So, and with that wind, but I didn't give up. I mean, I was there to get that shot, and I said, I'm not going to give up. I stayed there for 2 hours. I took a few interesting shots, more moody with maybe long exposures with the fast moving clouds, but I stayed there until the sun came out, and I think in the end I got what I wanted. Let me see if I can share a little photo here. This one here. Okay,
Oh,
so
wow. Nice.
the light finally was really the light I had hoped for came there, and all because I went the extra mile. I just did the effort. You cannot be lazy. I mean, especially if you are into landscape photography, you cannot always count on the weather, and you can just you never know where things might turn for the best. You just have to be patient and to suffer the wind.
I guess that's why I'm not a landscape photographer.
But
I know.
I think you have your own stories, right?
Yeah, to me, going the extra mile usually, well, I go the extra mile when I work for my clients. I take more time over things. I give them extra time. I do it. I over deliver. I do that. In my coaching, one example I was telling you about really going the extra mile is one time when I was on the phone at 3:00 in the morning because a friend, photographer, and client, she had won a really big award in the States, and she had not known about it, and she just learned that she won this really big award. And she got a panic attack before she got on stage to get the prize, and she was in a corridor crying like a baby, going like, oh my God. And I had to talk her off the ledge, literally, to get her to go and get the prize. And of course it was 9:00 there, and it was 3:00 in the morning. To me, that is still a really nice story, and I was not upset that she called me. I was not, annoyed in any way. And I was there for her, and I did talk her off the ledge, and she did, get herself together and went on and this was the first time she won a really big award. She's gone on to win more. Now she knows the ropes. And so that was really interesting to me, that I realized that we have to really go the extra mile in everything that we do, because otherwise the best things always come, I think, in those moments when you're actually give it a bit extra oomph, you give it a bit extra that is unexpected. You did not expect to sit there for 2 hours to take that shot, but then it came up. I did not expect to spend the night talking on this thing, but it was great, and I felt like I couldn't be there that year, and I felt like I was there, so it was really good for me. That's what we get out of it, not just what we give out. So I'm just looking at some comments. I used to always carry my camera, but I got lazy. I need to learn more about camera settings. This is Sheila. Now I know how to pronounce her name. And depending on the presets, I take the same shot with every preset and then keep the one that works. Yeah. Learning and experimenting, and just, risk is part of what we do. You risk it, and then you see how it works. So that's how you learn. Best way, Karen said, to use my camera, use it constantly on a longer vacation, 2 weeks of day in, day out, and you really learn it. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about putting the time in and becoming experts, even becoming experts at your settings. Not, that's the first step of it. And yeah.
Great. Now you've made me feel a little bad because my going the extra mile was all in the benefit of my photos, and
But it's not, because it's our benefit too. I would never have seen that if you hadn't taken a picture of it.
Cool.
Now, it doesn't make me want to do it. I'm happy you did it, so I don't have to. Right? But I do want to go. But I saw your other pictures of you at the distilleries in Skye, and I'm actually quite willing to do that.
Okay, we can do it. I'm planning to go back this spring, so
Absolutely.
You're,
Scotland
you're
and the
welcome to
distillery.
come.
And I do, I would go there and do a documentary shoot on the distillery and how they make the whiskey. That is my thing, And if it happens that there's a sun ray on a rock, I'll take that too. But I'm not going out of my way to do that. But that's just because we do. And I love working with you because we do completely different things. And so I learn from you a lot.
So no bringing you up the mountain to get that.
And I do. I hike up mountains actually a lot, but not so much when it's bad weather.
Okay.
Anyway,
So, do you want maybe to introduce another topic?
Yeah, we were talking about the mindset bit, right? So I can got a bit about that. I think one of the things you mentioned before was how Facebook groups and forums, whatever we do. I don't know if any of you has any. If you want to type in the comments, if you had good, bad experiences with other photographers, things happening in groups and things. One of the things I actually read this morning, but I read all the time, it's about how there's some amazing people and some horrible people, and people get upset about being criticized and this and that and the other. Now the thing is, the photography groups, photography or colleagues or photographers out there are people. So my comment this morning was, it's the world out there is full of amazing people and horrible people. No difference in Facebook groups. So we need to sort of learn to grow a little bit of a thick skin in a way. I mean, still be open and willing to connect, but at the same time, take criticism or take critiques with the grain of salt. And it's usually easier if we don't criticize the work of others, if we just criticize in a bad way. Our attitude towards others is usually what comes back to us. I learned that people are always sort of a little bit about other people. They get that same kind of energy back, and then they're always having trouble on Facebook. I don't get a lot of that because I don't do a lot of that, and people don't do it to me. So criticizing the work of others, if you have something constructive to say, that's great. And in turn, put your stuff out there, show up. It's really important. But at the same time, show up. And if you get good feedback, great. If you get constructive feedback, one can say, look, I don't like this because of this, this, and this, and that. Fine. Take, I always think in every criticism, there's a little nugget of gold that we may dig out and use for good. But if the criticism is just to bring you down, because some people, unfortunately, are like that, to make themselves feel better, they have to put you down. And so they do that. Leave it. Don't worry about it. Don't stop putting your work out there just because you might get some crap comment. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It says more about the person commenting than it does about your work. And for every nasty comment that you may get, or not nice, and I say not nasty, not maybe outwardly nasty, but everything that's unpleasant comment that you may get, then you get a lot of other people who really like your work. And what we do, I think I mentioned it last time, there was one of the people working with me saying, like, God, if she can do that with those pictures, my goodness, she must know how to do marketing, because she thinks my photos are bad. And it's fine, to me. It does. I'm not for everybody. My photos are not for everybody, and yours won't be either. So, and getting criticism from people who don't quite get your stuff may have some things in it that are really useful to improve. So it's not all bad, but don't get tied up in the emotional side of it, because otherwise what happens is that you are fearful of putting your stuff out there. And if you do that, then you're going to be shy about putting your stuff out there. That means you're not going to get any feedback whatsoever, and you're not going to be growing as much or taking advantage of what these groups really, having this ability to actually put our work there and get feedback from people that we whether we know them or not, but especially if it's people that we know and admire or, look up to, is unprecedented. We never could do this before. When I was growing up, it's either I print a photo and I bring it to you and show you, Ugo, or how am I going to get your comment on it? We did not have any of this 20 years ago, or however long it was, 30, 40, 50, oh my God. Anyway, all that time ago,
We had camera
days,
clubs.
Exactly, a camera, all that kind of stuff. So now we have this, so let's use it, because this technology is amazing. And we really do need to not worry about it. Ignore the critics, take the gold nuggets. Stop comparing our work to other people's work. That's also really important. I don't have to be as good as everybody else. There's people out there who do amazing work. There's people that I coach that do work that's way better than mine, and at the same time, it doesn't matter. It's great when I can actually learn from what I see from other people. I don't have to compare my work to anybody else's, and I don't have to be shy in putting stuff out or in actually producing the work. We're not here to just half-heartedly try and do things. We do it. You do it or you don't do it. Like Yoda said, do or do not. There is no try. Huh?
Yeah,
so we do stuff, we put it out there, and our confidence is really built on little steps and little building blocks that help us, be more sure. And even failure is good, because we build on that and we build on the lessons that we learn, and we're going to know more. We talked about that last time. So our confidence is our biggest asset, and we need to just work on it and make sure that we don't get, too caught up in the emotions of it. And I would like your comments on that. Okay, Sheila says, when I look at other people's work, like Ugo's, I become my own worst critic. We are our own worst critic anyway. So whether we look at other people's work or not, personally, you look at your things and you go like, oh my God. And really, to be honest, every time I come home from a job, every single time, and I download cards, I feel like I haven't got anything. It's all horrible. This is the worst shoot I've ever done in my life. What am I going to do with these clients? It's like every time. And then I download them and I just check quickly. And I go like, oh, maybe there's a couple that I like. Okay, maybe I got something, maybe. And then I wait a few days. I never look at my photos immediately. Maybe I wait a week. And then when I look at them again, I go like, oh, that's okay. That's not too bad. It's all right. I can make something with this. And then by the time I give it to the client, they go like, oh, this is great. And they love it. And if I can make my clients happy, that's all that matters. I don't care if you like it or if anybody else likes it. I need to make sure my clients like it. So we are our own worst critics.
I
definitely. Sorry, I took a lot.
And again, I was just through this. I want to continue to refer to my personal experience, but at the end of this workshop, just yesterday, of course, I was asking the students to show everyone their best photos so we could discuss them together. And they kept showing what I thought were great photos. I was looking at what they had taken during these 2 days, and I was amazed. Just good. And then I had to show my photos. And I said, I don't think my photos are that great. What are they going to think of me, the instructor, the teacher, who's able only take mediocre photos, maybe? And then they were telling me, oh, I would like to have taken photos as good as yours. And I said, okay, well, thank you. I was being my own worst critic, and
we always are
their own worst critics. Yeah, absolutely.
So I always have there's a photographer who is Julia. She's a newborn baby family photographer anyway. Her name is Julia Kelleher. Anyway, she teaches a lot of workshops, and she says she's given a name to her critic. His name is George, and George sits on her shoulder. He turns around and goes like, George, shut up. That to me is perfect. We need to just say, George, shut up.
So I would like to sum this up by saying that, as you said, it's very important that we show up. It's very important that we do the work, as Ira Glass was saying, is it's important that we show our work. And there will be critics. There will be naysayers. There will be those that are just negative. And in all of that, there will be some golden nuggets that we need to learn to recognize.
Yeah.
And I think we don't need to let ourselves be taken down by those naysayers. We need to always realize where they're coming from. And I like to think of what Stephen Pressfield says in his the War of Art book, that criticism almost always comes from the resistance. And it's the people who are not realized in whatever they're doing, their art, their photography, their writing, are those that are always ready to criticize the others, because they see the others progressing, they see the others making things that they think they're not capable of, and the reaction is to criticize them. So the moment you understand that, those people most often they don't criticize you in order to help you become better. They criticize, because they yield into the resistance. So that's one thing.
They have to put you down to feel better about
to feel better.
themselves.
Exactly.
That's that happens.
And if you feel like you need to criticize somebody's photograph or work, I have this maxim to keep in mind. That is, I think it was Rick Salmon who told it to me. He said, if you don't have anything good to say about something, don't say anything. So even if you're something you think is not really good, but you still want to help the person who you want to extend the critique, always try something positive to say, even if it's a small thing, because
not
it's
chocolate on my nose. I made muffins. Maybe sorry, I didn't mean.
Send some muffins.
Yeah, but it's true. If you try to see the positive, and so we all started somewhere. We see photos on the web of people who are asking for feedback, and they may not be great because they just started. We were all there. If we look back on our first images, I shudder. But at the same time, it's I think what I like to see is the progress of someone, and then if you can follow that and encourage that, that's amazing. One other thing I'd like to say, just so about shooting and doing things.
Before you do, can I just say one thing, because you mentioned what I said about do or do not, there is no try, like Yoda used to say, because it relates to this, and what I mean by that is that if you decide to put your work out and you get critique or criticism, own your work. You made it. You should be proud of it, no matter what. And you should not find excuses why your work is not as people expect it to be. Right?
Yeah.
I was telling the story before about the boy running towards me. That is blurry. Okay. If I decide to put that photo out, saying if people were to point me, oh, that is blurry, I would say, oh no, because I thought he was going to run, to walk and not to run, so I didn't set my camera correctly, and this is what I got. This is an excuse that you're putting forward to justify
we don't have
yourself.
to justify, exactly. You don't have to justify you.
You put
if
it
you
out,
like it, put it out there. If it's out there because you like it, otherwise, you wouldn't.
You put it out, you own it, and you say, this is artistic blur. Or you don't put it out.
Did it on purpose.
Exactly.
I did it on purpose.
If you don't believe in it, don't put it out. If you put it out, don't listen to the critics, in the sense that, okay, saying it's blurry, yes, it is, because it is. Just own it. Own your mistakes if you like.
Yeah, so it's not about sharpness. We talked about all that, sharpness, blur, and all that. If a picture conveys a mood and an emotion, to me, it doesn't matter. Technically, it doesn't matter. That's what the thing I was going to say is, like, don't focus too much on the skills. Don't focus too much on the gear. Photographers are always after that lens and the new camera and this, that, and that, and the other. in the end, you need the best camera is what you got, the best lens is what you got. Learn to work creatively with what you've got, because even if your gear is not the most amazing, but you can. I started with, I didn't even have a full frame when I was working. It doesn't matter. Get the best you can, but don't worry about, until I have that 81.2, I cannot do portraits. Rubbish. We don't have to spend $2,000 on a camera, on a lens, to be able to do a good portrait. So yes, some things are candy. I call them, it's candy. And it's sweet to have some great lens or that kind of thing, but it's not necessary. So again, sometimes we use gear as an excuse not to do stuff. I can't do that because I don't have the right lens. Rubbish. Figure out a way to do it with the lens that you got. And when you do that, then when you get that lens, you'll be amazing. But at the time, you can do stuff with what you got. And the same skills. I'm not good enough to do this. Just go and try out, do it, put it into practice, and you will be good enough to do whatever it is that you want to do. Because it just, one day it will click, and it's the most amazing feeling. And I don't know if you have write down what you think about this, but
And now I feel inadequate because I don't have a full frame camera.
Oh, good God, I don't know why I'm even talking to you.
APS-C process. I just love my latest camera. I just got the Fuji X-T3, and I think it's the most amazing camera I ever owned, and I don't care about the sensor size. It's just makes me feel happy.
Like, sensor size is overrated.
Oh.
As well, right? Absolutely. We need to make a list of the stuff that's overrated.
I need to dig up a little video that Zach Arias did a few years ago about sensor size, and he was comparing the crop sensor APS-C with full frame, and the differences are really minimal. And said, well, do you think this is full frame? Let me show you medium format. Let me show you large format. Let me show you 8x10. Do you think you have your puny 35 millimeter sensor is big? Think again.
It's not. We used to shoot 6x6s, and we used to shoot, we used to shoot big film.
At the same time, the thing about skills, we said that you should be skilled with your camera. We're not saying that, of course, it doesn't matter. What we're trying to say, I think, is that you should not wait until your skills are perfect before you go out, before you take photos, especially nowadays with cameras that are very much automatic, very helpful. And before you go out, before you shoot photos, before you try to do new things, and before you show what you did to the world. You don't have to be the exposure always perfectly nailed and everything sharp and not blurry. That's what we're trying to say, I think, right?
Yeah. And this thing about showing up is also a thing about kill your perfectionism. We don't have to be perfect. Things don't have to be perfect. I think we mentioned it last week as well. Don't be upset if they copy your work. That's flattery. Don't be upset if they criticize your work. That's, we said that before. It doesn't have to be perfect to be put out there. Just show up as much as you can. And if you show up a lot, you will grow a lot faster. That is almost a mathematical curve in my experience. If you keep things to yourself and you don't show up and you don't put your work out there, it's going to take a lot longer. So I was just looking at comments. How easy? Okay, that's the question to you. I don't know if there's anybody still listening to us, but I think so. How easy it is for you, or hard it is for you to show up and put your work out there? What are the thoughts? What are the things that come through your head and that stop you, maybe, or help you put your work out there? I'd like to see I'd like to read some of that.
Yep. I think that's and you said this: don't be upset if people steal your work in a way, copy your photos and so on. Of course, now you if you have a commercial thing going on and you're selling photos and so on, now, I'm not saying do not pursue commercial copyright infringement. People get your photos and put them in a magazine or an ad and
No,
try
no,
to
not in
profit
that
from it.
way. But if
That's
they
yeah,
copy, you
exactly.
know, what you're doing, they go, she took a picture. It's exactly the same as mine.
Right.
I have clients who they're probably, you know, they have a competition, a competitor. They come up with some ideas for their studios, their portraits and things. And then there's a girl down the road who just copies everything and charges $50 less or something. You know? And that's really annoying. But in the end, it's like the world is made of two kinds of chefs in my life. Talking about food, I always talk about food. You go into a restaurant, you eat something amazing, you go to the chef and you say, will you tell me how you did it? Will you give me the recipe of something? And the world is divided into two. There's chefs who say, no, it's a secret, and they're not sharing their secrets with you. And the other half of the world says, sure, this is the recipe, I'll send it to you, or we'll give it to you, write it down for you. And you know, that's how I learned to cook. Because they know that even if they give you exact amounts and everything, what you make will never be the same as what they make, because we are different. We're going to put us, they cannot be exactly the same. You will never be able to make it exactly the same. And what they make is amazing. It's going to be better than yours anyway, most of the time. So, and it's the same, you know, people can copy us, but they can't really do the same thing. And if that is not their thing, it's not going to come out real. You know, we talked about last time about putting yourself into your photos. Well, they cannot put you into their photos, right? So it's not going to work. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
And if people copy your work, it means that your work is good. So
Exactly. That's what I said. That's flattering. So that's fine.
So my maxim here, I'm the quotes guy. Here, let me see if I can get this out. I like this one. It's from Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock. And not a lot of people know that he was not just a great actor, he was also a very good photographer. As shown Spock here with the camera. And he says, the miracle is this, the more we share, the more we have.
Yeah.
And of course, this refers to sharing your photos, of course, but I like to apply this to sharing knowledge, to sharing what we've learned. Which is what we're doing here, right? Why are we doing this? Why are we sharing, spilling our best secrets to bridge the gap? Because we think that the more we share this, the more we have, the more this enriches ourselves. Because we get to know people give us their comments, their feedbacks, and this changes the way we think, we interact. This is just what humanity is about, what all of culture is about. People don't write books for themselves. People write books and put their ideas out because this enriches themselves in the first place. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah. And yeah, and going back to what we share, I think, and what we put out there. I made a course, and this was mentioned in this, and that's the only reason why I'm bringing it back in a little bit, because I want to talk a little bit and maybe give you an exercise to do. I made a course on the superpowers, and I don't know if any of you read about it, but anyway, I believe that we will have some untapped superpowers. We can manage all kinds of things in our lives differently. And so I made a course on that. And it's not just for photographers. It's about us as human beings and how the things that make us tick. And so one of the things that I did in that is when we actually want to get somewhere, and we want to set some goals, and we want to grow, and we want to do stuff. But most of the times it's really difficult to know what we want really, okay? So I was going to give you this thing, and now I'm going to make this quick because it's quite late. But if we go, will give me 5 more minutes.
Of course.
I'm going to give you an exercise that is really interesting. It's called the 101 Desires. And it's about, it's an exercise to really evaluate what you want to do. And it's not just in your photography, but in your life in general. So all of these things about superpowers are not just tied to photography, but they do help a lot with creativity. So what it is, you take a tiny little book that you can keep in your pocket or in your bag, and you're going to write down 101 things that you want. Now, the rules are, oh, you just disappeared.
No, it's okay.
Okay. The rules are, the rules are, every sentence needs to start with "I want," not "I would like" or "would be nice" or maybe. No, it's an "I want." Oh, you got light.
Let there be light.
Let there be light. So I want something. I want this. I want this. I want that. I want, and it's going to be 10 words or less under that. So it's 10 to 12 words at the most in every sentence. So if I want a house in Antibes with a red roof and a swimming pool and close to a really good restaurant and right on the beach, I'm going to have to split that up into 4 or 5 different I wants. Okay. So that's one thing. It cannot be a negative, like I don't want any debt, because we're talking, this is a positive thing, not a negative thing. And whatever you pay attention to will grow. That's a rule. So if I write about debt, I'm going to get more debt. So you can say I want financial independence or I want financial success or whatever, but it's not a negative ever. It cannot involve other people. I want to marry Bradley Cooper. Nope, it doesn't work. You just have to, it's about you. You can't have other people, be healed or anything that you care about, but you can say, I want to be there for them. I want to be a support for them. So it doesn't just have to be, material things. It can be more than that. It can be things that happen. You can, I want to take part in this. I want to travel to this place. I want to, all of the things that you may want. And you have to sit down and write them down. Now, the difficult thing is that you're going to be writing down 10, 15, 20 things quite quickly. 101 is a lot. And this may take months, honestly. I don't know if have ever any of you heard of this before or done this before. I'd like you to comment on that. What happens is this. The exercise is, yes, you're writing things down that you want, and that helps you focus on the things that you want. It also means that it becomes a habit for you to evaluate the things that you see and immediately divide them into, do I really want this or do I not want this? Is this good enough to go in the book or not? I see a jacket in a window or a pair of shoes and I want them and I like them. Is that good enough to go in the book or not? And you kind of really make a decision, and you stop having all these things in your mind that you may or may not want, but you're not quite sure about. It's a really, really, really good exercise to know exactly what you want and to get a clear direction on where you want to go with your life, with your photography, with your work, with your family, with whatever it is that is important to you. So that is one thing that may take you months, may take 6 months, may take 6 weeks, it certainly won't take a day. It'll take quite a long time. And but you will see that then things start to happen. They just start to happen. And read it regularly. It takes just a few minutes. You can read it out loud. The reason why it's 10 words or less is because you can say everyone in a breath. So I want that, I want that, I want that, and you can say them all in like 3 minutes. So if you want, you can read them out loud. You can just remember and go through them. And then you'll see that sometimes the most unlikely things that you put out there, really wild dreams, happen faster than some almost normal things. It's quite exciting. And then I would love you to comment or put, actually, I'd like you to post a picture of your little book, and then write your comments on how you're getting on with it. if you will do it. Who is gonna do it?
Or
Put a comment here. Tell me if you're gonna do it. I
I'm even
challenge you
asking,
to do it.
I'm even asking people here who are listening to put in the comments one thing, one desire that
That
they
they
have.
want.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
just put one desire, the first thing that comes to you.
And am I allowed to say I want $1 million?
No, okay, no, that's it. Right. It's not about money. Okay, that's one thing. That's another rule. It's not about money. If I want $1 million, what do I want it for? Do I want to buy a house, a castle in Scotland? Then say, I want a castle in Scotland. And sometimes what this means is that you say, I want a castle in Scotland. You write it down and you go like, oh, bloody hell, that takes a lot to heat. I want a house with a view of a castle in Scotland, right? I don't necessarily want to be in the bloody castle because those are really uncomfortable places to live in. So that's what it does. It makes you think about what you really, really want. Do I want the castle? Maybe I may write that down, and then in a couple of days go like, oh, wait a second. I want a house where I can see a castle, not necessarily outside my bedroom window, not necessarily the actual castle. So it's really, I can't explain how useful this thing is. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I had started doing it when you first told me about it, but I have to confess that I stopped, and now I feel obliged to pick it up again. I have my little book, and I like doing it by shorthand. Right?
Yeah.
Don't use a computer, just pen and
No,
paper.
this needs to be written by hand.
Pad.
Yeah, it's a little booklet. You take it with me, a little black book, color book, whatever. Like Sheila says, she writes a gratitude list each day. Yes, we have a gratitude thing as well. But this is more about aiming at things. And yeah, absolutely being grateful is a great thing. Want to travel to Galapagos Islands. That is a fantastic thing to put into your start off your book with. So I'd love you all to go back into the Facebook group and post a picture of your little book and write down how it's going. And then everybody else can come here and listen what it's about because they'll be curious about it. And then we'll see. And then as things happen, you can share them because they start happening pretty fast and it's quite exciting.
It can be about photography, like I want to win the World Press Photo Award, but it can also be about, just traveling to the Galapagos Island or having a castle in Scotland. Who knows? Doesn't have to be about photography necessarily. And it would be hard to feel 101 desires about photography. There are only so many cameras and lenses.
I got a couple of lenses and a couple of cameras in there, of course, in the list. But actually, I put some things in there that I then took out. So I realized, I thought I wanted that, but I don't anymore. I moved on. So we change, we grow, and things, our wants and desires change with us. So, well, and I think we've overstepped. But I do want to say something, though. Are you going to say it? Because we were talking about doing something, remember? And
you go ahead.
Okay, we decided whatever we're going to do it in May. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're going to do it in May, and I am going to be bringing the superpowers to it, not just the photography. Ugo will do most of the photography. I'll do some of the street photography, maybe. Or some of it, but I will bring superpowers to that training, which will be exciting, and it's going to be in May, and I don't think we want to say anything more about it, do we?
No, okay.
No, okay.
For those who would like to explore these topics and the ones that we are going to cover in the next session, and want to do it with a little bit more of time, face to face, maybe in front of nice food and wine, who knows?
Absolutely. If
and
anybody knows me, that's the number one priority. It's like we will be very diligent about food and wine.
And of course, taking photos together, because it's all about photography and just not going to talk about philosophy. We're just going to put things down in practice. So, okay, well, we're not going to say much. We just invite you to come to our next session where we'll reveal everything about this little thing that we've got going on. And when is our next session going to be, by the way? think we'll give you a little bit more time for this time, because we have travel and
Traveling, yeah.
yeah, most travel and work engagements coming up. So the next one is going to be, if I'm not mistaken,
November 5th,
November 5. That
which
is
is
on
in 2
Monday.
weeks on
In 2
Monday.
weeks. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is provisional tentative. We'll send out emails and announcement to the group, but just start marking your calendars for November 5, same time, which is 7 p.m. here. Well, actually, yeah, 7 p.m. here in Central Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK. I don't want to say what the time is going to be in the US, because I know that in
Well, the
Europe we're
same as
going.
today.
Are you sure? Because we are going to switch to off daylight savings,
We
and
are.
the
Oh,
US maybe
goodness.
is doing a little bit later. So just think
Anyway,
about.
you check
We'll
the
check.
link.
Yeah, check the link.
Put a time clock on it or something.
Yeah, we'll do. November 5, more or less the same time. Like, take
Martini time.
give or take one time zone or daylight savings, and so on, but more or
Yeah,
less the one. And
we'll
of
get
course,
that done.
everything will be recorded, just as this one, so you'll be always be able to access it. And you will, if you signed up for this, you will be able to access this forever. We're not going to take it down, so it's
Fine.
yours to keep.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us. This
Yep.
was fun.
Thanks a lot. We really appreciate your presence here, your continued presence and following us, and keep that feedback coming. Keep questions. Give us your
We need
comments.
feedback. Otherwise, we go, oh my God, nobody's commenting. Nobody's giving me a like. What are we going to do? Yeah.
Criticism, including criticism.
Including criticism.
Which we said, do not criticize us, but yeah, you can criticize us if you like.
Yeah.
We have a thick skin. Okay, so
good.
Time for dinner now, and
Yeah.
it's been great seeing you again, and we'll see you in more or less
Bye,
a couple of
everybody.
weeks.
Yes. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.